My name is Olivia Mitchell, and I'm 32 years old. Imagine being erased from your own family with a label maker. That's exactly what happened when my sister pressed a visitor sticker onto my jacket at our parents' will reading. Find your name on these documents, she smirked, waving the property deeds. I'll wait. But what she didn't know was that a locked drawer in that lawyer's office held something that would change everything, a document that named the real heir, and it wasn't her. Before I share how one family's greed led to the most shocking inheritance reversal our state has ever seen, please take a moment to like and subscribe, but only if you truly enjoy this story. I love hearing from viewers around the world, so drop a comment with your location and what time you're watching. Someone from Australia told me they stayed up until 3 a.m. to hear how this ended. Now, let me take you back to that mahogany-paneled conference room where 12 witnesses watched my entire life get stolen, and then returned in the most unexpected way. The law offices of Harrison and Associates occupied the top floor of a limestone building that had witnessed 50 years of family disputes, but none quite like ours. I arrived 15 minutes early that Tuesday morning, my hands steady despite what I knew was coming. The receptionist, a woman who'd known our family for decades, couldn't meet my eyes as she directed me to conference room A. "The others are already here," she said quietly. "The others, not your family." Even she knew where the lines had been drawn. The mahogany table could seat 12 comfortably, its polished surface reflecting the overhead lights like a mirror. Victoria had claimed the chair at the head, our father's usual spot. She wore a cream suit that probably cost more than most people's monthly rent, her blonde hair pulled into a severe bun that made her look older than her 38 years. Our parents flanked her like bodyguards, though their clouded eyes suggested they barely knew where they were. "Olivia," Victoria acknowledged without standing, "we saved you a seat." She gestured to a folding chair someone had placed by the door. Not at the table, not with the family. A metal folding chair that looked like it had been dragged from a storage closet. The other relatives, 2 uncles, 3 cousins, and my father's sister Margaret, shifted uncomfortably but said nothing. Margaret actually smiled sympathetically, but when Victoria's gaze swept over her, she looked away. I took the folding chair without comment. Let them think they'd won this small battle. Mr. Harrison hadn't arrived yet, and his empty chair at the opposite end of the table seemed to wait, with the patience of someone who'd seen every possible family betrayal. Victoria checked her phone. "He's running 3 minutes late, unprofessional really for what we're paying him." "He's been our family lawyer for 30 years, I said. "Your family lawyer," Victoria corrected, emphasizing the "your" like it was something distasteful. "Things are different now." The door opened. Mr. Harrison entered carrying a briefcase and something else, a locked file box I'd never seen before. He was 65, silver-haired, with the kind of presence that made everyone sit straighter. His eyes swept the room, lingered on my folding chair, then settled on Victoria. "Shall we begin?" he asked, though something in his tone suggested the real question was, "Are you absolutely certain you want to do this?" 29 years. That's how long I'd been their daughter, or so I thought. The adoption papers were signed when I was 3, too young to remember anything before the Mitchell house became my world. But Victoria never let me forget that I was chosen, not born into this family. "Remember," she used to say when we were kids, "they picked you because they felt sorry for you. I'm here because I'm supposed to be." Except, she wasn't here. Not for the 20 years that mattered. When our parents' health started declining 18 months ago, Victoria was living her best life in Sydney, posting Instagram photos from beach clubs and wine tours. She hadn't called home in 2 years, hadn't visited in 5. Meanwhile, I moved back from the city, taking a leave from my financial management firm to help Dad through his heart surgery, and Mom through her increasing confusion. "Where's Victoria?" Mom would ask during her bad days. "She's traveling, Mom. She's happy." "And you? Are you happy?" I'd hold her hand, the one with the IV drip, and lie. "I'm exactly where I need to be." 6 months ago, everything changed. Victoria appeared at the doorstep with 2 suitcases and a smile that never reached her eyes. "I heard Daddy's been unwell," she said, pushing past me into the house she'd abandoned. "Family should be together during difficult times." The timing was suspicious. Dad had just received a diagnosis of mild dementia. Manageable, the doctors said, but he'd need help with complex decisions. Within a week, Victoria had moved into the master guest suite and inserted herself as their primary caregiver, despite my 18 months of sacrifice. "You must be exhausted," she told me one morning, finding me organizing Dad's medications. "All this responsibility on someone who's not even, well, it must be overwhelming." "I'm their daughter too." She laughed, actually laughed. "On paper, maybe. But when push comes to shove, blood recognizes blood. Daddy told me yesterday he's so glad his real daughter finally came home." Dad hadn't recognized anyone yesterday. He'd spent the afternoon calling me by my mother's name and asking when the war would end. But Victoria had already started her campaign, and I could see my parents beginning to look at me differently. Not as the daughter who'd cared for them, but as the outsider their real daughter said I'd always been. The room had grown uncomfortably warm. Or maybe it was just the way Victoria kept smiling at me. Mr. Harrison arranged his papers methodically, each movement deliberate. The locked file box sat beside him like a silent witness. "Before we begin," Victoria announced, standing up as if she owned the room, "I think it's important everyone understands the current situation." She pulled a manila folder from her designer bag. "Mom and Dad have already transferred the primary assets to ensure they stay in the family, the real family." She spread the documents across the table like playing cards. Deeds, transfer papers, bank documents, each one dated 3 months ago, each one bearing our parents' shaky signatures. "The house on Maple Street," she read, her manicured finger trailing down the list. "The vacation property at the lake, the investment portfolio, Mitchell Family Enterprises." She paused at the last one, looking directly at me. "The company you've been managing." Managing, as if I hadn't built it from a failing print shop into a $3 million digital marketing firm. "That's not right," I said quietly. "Life isn't fair." Her response came quick, practiced. "I cared for them when you were gone. Blood matters more than duty. You disappeared for 10 years, Victoria. I was finding myself. Now I'm found. They needed me. Every surgery, every appointment. They have me now." She picked up one of the deeds, holding it up to the light so everyone could see the official seal. "Find your name on any of these documents. Go ahead, I'll wait." The room fell silent. My uncles studied their hands. Margaret opened her mouth as if to speak, then closed it. Even Mr. Harrison had stopped shuffling papers, his eyes fixed on Victoria with an expression I couldn't read. "Nothing?" Victoria's voice dripped false sympathy. "Not a single mention? How strange. It's almost like you were never really part of this family at all." Our father stirred in his chair. "The papers," he mumbled, his voice confused. "There were other papers." "Shh, Daddy." Victoria's hand landed on his shoulder, firm. "We've taken care of everything. The right papers are signed, everything's in order." But Mr. Harrison had leaned forward slightly, his fingers drumming once on the table. "May I interject?" The words were soft, professional, but something in his tone made Victoria's smile falter for just a second. Mr. Harrison adjusted his reading glasses, a gesture I'd seen him make countless times over the years when he was about to say something significant. "Ms. Mitchell," he addressed Victoria formally, "these transfers you're referencing, they're dated 3 months ago?" "Yes," Victoria's chin lifted. "All properly executed and notarized." "I see." He made a note on his legal pad. "And you were present for these signings?" "Of course. Family supports family." "Indeed." The word hung in the air like a question. "Tell me, was there any previous documentation regarding the estate? Any earlier arrangements?" Victoria's laugh was sharp. "This is the latest version. It supersedes anything else. Supersedes. Mr. Harrison repeated the word slowly, as if tasting it. That's an interesting choice of words. It implies there was something to supersede. I watched him pull out a different folder from his briefcase, this one with a small blue tab. My heart began to race, though I wasn't sure why. Standard protocol for multiple wills requires specific procedures, he continued. Witnesses, for instance. May I ask who witnessed these transfers? It was a private family matter, Victoria said quickly, too quickly. The notary handled everything. A notary can verify signatures, but witnesses serve a different purpose, especially when dealing with elderly signatories who might be experiencing— He paused, glancing at my parents. Health challenges. My father's eyes had drifted to the locked file box beside Mr. Harrison's chair. The blue folder, he said suddenly, his voice clearer than it had been in weeks. Helen, remember the blue folder? My mother blinked slowly. With the ribbons? The one we put in the safe? There's no blue folder, Victoria interrupted, her hand tightening on Dad's shoulder. You're confused. But Mr. Harrison had already turned his attention to the locked box. He produced a small key from his vest pocket, the metallic click echoing in the silent room. Actually, Mrs. Mitchell's memory might be more reliable than you think. Victoria stood abruptly. What is this? We came here to finalize the current arrangements, not dig through old paperwork. Oh, but old paperwork can be quite illuminating. Mr. Harrison lifted the lid of the box. Inside, I could see the edge of a blue folder, tied with a faded ribbon. Especially when it's been in my personal safe for 15 years, with very specific instructions about when it should be revealed. The room seemed to hold its breath. I think we should take a break, Victoria announced, but Mr. Harrison raised his hand gently. We're all here, Ms. Mitchell. Best to proceed. He pulled out the blue folder, but didn't open it yet. Instead, he looked at me. Olivia, would you mind staying in your seat? This concerns you directly. Victoria's face had taken on an ugly flush. Whatever old document you have there is irrelevant. The current papers were signed under what circumstances exactly? Mr. Harrison interrupted. Because I have some questions about your parents' capacity to make such significant changes. That's when Victoria snapped. She strode over to my folding chair, reaching into her bag again. This time, she pulled out a label maker, the kind you'd use for filing cabinets or storage boxes. The mechanical clicking as she typed filled the silence. You know what your problem is, Olivia? She peeled off the label she'd just created. You don't know your place. Before I could react, she pressed the label onto my jacket. Visitor. The white letters on black tape stood out against my navy blazer like a scar. Gasps rippled through the room. Margaret actually stood up. Victoria, that's enough. Is it? Victoria wheeled on her aunt. She's been playing daughter for 30 years, but we all know the truth. She's a charity case my parents took in, and charity cases don't inherit estates. She turned back to me, her face inches from mine. Still can't find your name on any legal document that matters? Still pretending you belong at this table? You're not even supposed to be in this room. I stood slowly, the label still warm against my jacket. Every eye in the room was on me. Some sympathetic, others uncomfortable, all waiting to see if I would crumble. If that's how you see me, I said quietly, then perhaps I should leave. Finally, some sense. Please stay, Ms. Mitchell. Mr. Harrison's voice cut through Victoria's triumph. His formal use of my name, the same name Victoria bore, was deliberate. You'll want to hear this. All of you will. He opened the blue folder with the same ceremony someone might use to unveil a masterpiece. This is the last will and testament of Robert and Helen Mitchell, executed 15 years ago, with full mental capacity, 3 witnesses, and my personal authentication as their attorney of record. Victoria's face went white. That's impossible. Victoria lunged for the blue folder, but Mr. Harrison pulled it back with practiced ease. Please return to your seat, Ms. Mitchell. Any attempt to destroy legal documents will be reported to the authorities. You can't Do this, she hissed. Those papers are ancient history. The new documents were signed 3 months ago when your father couldn't remember his own birthday and your mother was on heavy medication for anxiety. Mr. Harrison's voice remained calm, but there was steel underneath. I've collected medical records from their physicians. Would you like me to read them aloud? The room had become a tableau of frozen faces. My uncles leaned forward. Margaret had her hand over her mouth. Even the cousins who'd avoided eye contact earlier were now staring at Victoria with something between shock and disgust. Let me be clear, Mr. Harrison continued, opening the folder fully. This will was created when both Robert and Helen were in perfect health. They came to my office specifically to ensure their wishes were protected from any future interference. Interference? Victoria's voice cracked. Their word, not mine. They were quite specific about their concerns. He lifted the first page. Shall I read the relevant passage? My father, who'd been silent, suddenly spoke with surprising clarity. Read it, Harrison, read all of it. Victoria spun toward him. Daddy, you don't understand. I understand enough. His eyes, usually clouded, seemed to focus on his biological daughter with something like disappointment. You came back when you heard about the money. That's not. June 15th, he said. That's when the quarterly statements arrived. June 20th, you were at our door. Mr. Harrison cleared his throat. The document reads, We, Robert and Helen Mitchell, being of sound mind and body, do hereby declare our beloved daughter, Olivia Mitchell, adopted into our hearts and our family, to be our sole heir and beneficiary. The words seemed to echo in the room. Sole heir, beneficiary. My name, spoken into legal existence. Victoria's hands shook. That can't be legal. She's not blood. I'm their real daughter. Biology doesn't determine legitimacy in estate law, Mr. Harrison said. And this document predates your recent papers by 15 years. It takes precedence, especially given the circumstances of the newer signatures. He turned the page. There's more. Would you like me to continue? This can't be happening. Victoria's carefully constructed composure was crumbling. I'm their biological daughter. Blood means something. It meant so little to you that you disappeared for a decade, Margaret finally spoke up. Olivia was here, every day, every crisis. Mr. Harrison continued reading. To our biological daughter, Victoria Mitchell, we leave the sum of $1. This token amount, ensuring she cannot contest this will on grounds of omission. He looked up. Your parents were quite thorough. $1? Victoria's voice rose to a shriek. $1? There's an addendum, Mr. Harrison noted. Should any attempt be made to manipulate, coerce, or unduly influence us in our declining years, all associated documents shall be considered void, and this original shall stand as our final testament. The precision of it was breathtaking. 15 years ago, my parents had seen this coming. They'd known their daughter well enough to predict her return, her manipulation, her greed. You planned this, Victoria accused, pointing at me. You turned them against me. I was 17 when this was written, I said quietly. You were 23, living in Australia, and hadn't called home in 2 years. The will also specifies, Mr. Harrison continued, that Mitchell Family Enterprises, which was then a struggling print shop, would belong entirely to whoever transformed it into a profitable venture. Olivia, I believe you have the financial records showing the company's growth under your management? I did. 5 years of tax returns, profit statements, client contracts, all bearing my signature as CEO, a position I'd earned through sweat and innovation, while Victoria posted beach selfies from the other side of the world. This is fraud, Victoria sputtered. Elder abuse. I'll sue. Actually, Mr. Harrison interrupted, pulling out another document. Elder abuse is exactly what we need to discuss. These medical records show your parents' diminished capacity at the time of the recent transfers. combined with evidence that you isolated them from their chosen heir and manipulated them into signing documents they didn't understand. Well, that's a felony in this state. The room went silent, except for the sound of Victoria's harsh breathing. Security footage, Mr. Harrison added quietly, from the bank where the transfers were notarized, shows you guiding your father's hand as he signed. The bank manager has already provided a sworn statement. Victoria's legs seemed to give out. She sank into her chair, the cream suit that had looked so powerful now making her appear ghostly pale. If you've ever felt like an outsider in your own family, type "family" in the comments. I read every single one, and it helps me know I'm not alone. Also, what would you do if your family gave everything to someone who disappeared for 10 years? Let me know below. Your stories give me strength, and they matter more than you know. Now here's where things get really interesting, because what happened next changed not just my inheritance, but the entire family dynamic forever. Mr. Harrison wasn't finished. He pulled out a tablet and connected it to the conference room screen. I took the liberty of documenting everything over the past 3 months. Every interaction, every transaction, every medical report. The screen lit up with a timeline. June 20th, Victoria returns. June 25th, first attempt to change power of attorney. July 5th, parents' doctor notes confusion and recommends cognitive evaluation. July 15th, evaluation postponed at family member's request. Signature, Victoria Mitchell. You tracked me? Victoria's voice was hollow. I protected my clients, Mr. Harrison corrected. Robert and Helen asked me to, 15 years ago. They said, and I quote, "If she comes back when we're vulnerable, protect Olivia. She's our true daughter." My mother, who'd been silent, suddenly reached across the table toward me. "Olivia, sweetheart, we remember. Not everything, but we remember you." Mom? No. She shook her head, tears forming. "We signed those papers because Victoria said you'd abandoned us. She said you were stealing from the company. She said—" She trailed off, looking at Victoria with horror. "You lied about everything." "The company records show Olivia never took a salary above market rate," Mr. Harrison added. "In fact, she reinvested 80% of her earnings back into the business. Meanwhile, Ms. Victoria Mitchell has withdrawn $40,000 from your accounts in the last 3 months alone." Gasps echoed around the table. 40,000 in 3 months. For expenses, Victoria protested. Taking care of them is expensive. Olivia managed it for 18 months without taking a penny, Margaret said coldly. Strange how your care costs so much more. Mr. Harrison pulled out his phone. I've been in contact with the district attorney's office. They're very interested in this case. Elder financial abuse is a serious crime, carrying up to 5 years in prison. You wouldn't dare. It's not up to me. It's up to Olivia. He turned to me. As the rightful heir and the victim of attempted fraud, you have the right to press charges. Everyone looked at me. Even Victoria, her face a mask of fear now, stared at me with something like pleading in her eyes. The visitor label still clung to my jacket, a reminder of how she'd tried to erase me. But I wasn't the one who needed to prove anything anymore. There's one more thing, Mr. Harrison said, reaching into the blue folder again. A letter. Your parents asked me to read it only if the situation arose. He unfolded a handwritten page, my mother's careful script visible even from where I sat. Dear Olivia, he began, his voice taking on a gentler tone. If you're hearing this, it means we were right to be afraid. Right to protect you. Victoria made a sound like a wounded animal. You came to us as a 3-year-old girl who'd already lost everything. We promised to love you as our own, and that promise became the truest thing in our lives. You are our daughter. Not by blood, but by choice, by love, by every birthday cake baked, every scraped knee bandaged, every proud moment at your graduations. Tears were running down my face now. I couldn't stop them. Victoria is our biological child, but she chose to be a stranger. When you built the business, she was silent. When we were sick, she was absent. We know she'll come back for the money. She always talked about her inheritance even as a child, as if our death was just a payday waiting to happen. Stop, Victoria whispered. Please stop. But Mr. Harrison continued. The will we're signing today isn't about punishing her. It's about protecting you. You are our legacy, Olivia. You are what we're proud of. The business you built, the care you've shown, the woman you've become, that's our true inheritance to the world. Our bodies made Victoria, but our hearts chose you. Never doubt that you are our real daughter. Love, Mom and Dad. The silence that followed was complete. Even the air conditioning seemed to pause. Margaret was crying openly. My uncle sat stunned. My parents, despite their confusion, had moved their chairs closer to mine. The blue folder, my father said suddenly, his moment of clarity bright and brief. We put our hearts in the blue folder, for Olivia, our daughter. Victoria stood abruptly, her chair scraping against the floor. This isn't over. I'll contest. With what money? Mr. Harrison asked mildly. The 40,000 you took? That's evidence of embezzlement now. Your recent transfers are void. You have no legal standing, no funds, and potential criminal charges pending. She looked around the room, searching for allies, but found only condemnation. Even the cousins who'd smiled at her earlier now avoided her gaze. Victoria's final attempt at control was almost pitiful. She grabbed the label maker again, her fingers fumbling with the keys. You want to see what you really are? She printed another label. Thief. You stole my family. She tried to stick it on me, but I caught her wrist. Not roughly, just firmly. No, I said. I'm done letting you label me. The visitor tag was still on my jacket. I peeled it off slowly, deliberately, and looked at it. Then I did something that made everyone stare. I laughed. You know what? I'm keeping this. I folded the label carefully and put it in my pocket. I'm framing it in my office, a reminder that sometimes the visitors are the ones who were born here, and the family are the ones who chose to stay. You sanctimonious Victoria. Mr. Harrison's voice cut through. I suggest you leave now. The district attorney will contact you within 48 hours about the charges. You'll need a lawyer. I'll destroy you, she snarled at me. All of you. I'll tell everyone what you did. Tell them what? Margaret stood up, her 5-foot frame somehow imposing. That you tried to steal from your parents? That you committed elder abuse? Please tell everyone. Save us the trouble. Victoria grabbed her designer bag, her hands shaking so badly she could barely zip it. This family is poison. You all deserve each other. We are each other's, my mother said quietly. It was the clearest thing she'd said in months. That's what you never understood, Victoria. Family isn't about deserving. It's about choosing. And we choose Olivia. Victoria's exit was not the dramatic storm out she probably wanted. She stumbled over the threshold, her heel catching on the carpet. No one moved to help her. The door closed with a quiet click that somehow sounded final. Well, Mr. Harrison said after a moment, beginning to organize his papers, I'll file the necessary documents this afternoon. Olivia, as conservator for your parents' estate, you'll need to sign some papers. The house, the business, all assets will be properly transferred to your management until... He glanced kindly at my parents. Until they're needed. What about Victoria? I asked. The charges? That's your decision. But I'd recommend protection orders at minimum. She's desperate now, and desperate people do dangerous things. I nodded, already exhausted by the weight of what came next. The rest of the meeting passed in a blur of signatures and explanations. Mr. Harrison walked everyone through the legal implications, the timeline for transfers, the criminal investigation that would follow. My uncles, who'd been silent throughout Victoria's humiliation, now offered their support. We should have spoken up sooner, Uncle James said. We saw what she was doing, but she's family. So is Olivia, Margaret said firmly. We forgot that. We let blood blind us to behavior. As people began to leave, Each stopping to squeeze my shoulder or murmur an apology, my parents remained seated. They looked smaller somehow, diminished by the weight of their daughter's betrayal. "We failed you," my mother said. "Both of you. We failed Victoria by never teaching her consequences, and we failed you by letting her make you feel like less than you are." "Mom, no, let me finish. My mind, it comes and goes. But right now, in this moment, I know exactly who you are. You're the daughter who held my hand through chemo 10 years ago, who learned to cook Dad's favorite soup when I couldn't, who built a business from nothing and never once lorded it over us." My father nodded slowly. "The will, we wrote it after Victoria missed your college graduation. She was finding herself in Europe. You just graduated summa cum laude, and she couldn't be bothered to come home. That's when we knew." "Knew what?" "That biology is just science. Love is what makes a family." Mr. Harrison finished packing his briefcase, leaving the blue folder on the table in front of me. "This is yours now. The original will, the letter, all of it. Your parents wanted you to have it when the time came." "What happens to Victoria?" I asked. "That depends on her. If she's smart, she'll leave town, start over. If she fights this—" He shrugged. "The evidence is overwhelming. The security footage alone would convict her." As we prepared to leave, I looked around the conference room one last time. 2 hours ago, I'd entered as a visitor in my own family. Now I was leaving as what I'd always been, their daughter. "Olivia?" My father's voice was fading back into confusion. "Are we going home?" "Yes, Dad, we're going home." And for the first time in 6 months, I actually believed it was still ours. Have you ever had someone try to erase your entire existence from a family? Share your story in the comments. I reply to as many as I can, and your experiences help others know they're not alone. And if you're finding value in this story, please hit that like button. It really helps others who need to hear this message find it too. The algorithm is mysterious, but your engagement makes a real difference. Now, let me tell you what happened after Victoria left, because the aftermath was something none of us expected. 3 days later, the doorbell rang at 6 a.m. I found Victoria on the porch, but not the Victoria from the conference room. This one wore sweatpants and no makeup, her hair unwashed, her eyes red-rimmed. Behind her, a rental car was packed with boxes. "I need the photo albums," she said without preamble. "The ones from when I was a kid. They're mine." I could have said no. Legally, everything in the house was under my control now, but something in her broken posture made me step aside. "They're in the attic, you know where." She climbed the stairs while I made coffee. When she came down 20 minutes later, she was crying, ugly, harsh sobs that shook her whole body. "They wrote letters," she gasped. "In the albums, little notes about my first steps, my kindergarten graduation. They loved me once." "They never stopped loving you, Victoria. They just stopped trusting you." She sat at the kitchen table, the same one where we'd eaten countless family dinners, and looked at me with something like genuine curiosity. "How do you do it? How do you love people who can throw you away?" "They didn't throw me away. You tried to. But they signed those papers. When I told them you were stealing, they believed me. They were sick and confused. You were their biological daughter telling them lies that sounded plausible. That's not throwing someone away, that's being manipulated." She was quiet for a long moment, then. "The DA called. They're offering a plea deal, probation and restitution instead of jail time, if I don't contest the will and leave the state. You should take it." "I know." She stood, clutching the photo albums. "I'm moving to Portland. I have a friend there who offered me a job. Nothing fancy, just office work, but it's far from here." We walked to the door together. On the porch, she turned back. "That label thing, I'm sorry. That was cruel, even for me." "I meant what I said. I'm keeping it." "Why?" "Because for 29 years, I've been afraid of being called a visitor in my own life. You made my worst fear real, and I survived it. That label has no power over me now." She nodded slowly, understanding maybe for the first time that her cruelty had backfired. Take care of them. Better than I would have. I will. As her car pulled away, my father appeared beside me, one of his increasingly rare moments of clarity lighting his eyes. She's gone? Yeah, Dad, she's gone. Good, he said firmly. Now our real daughter can stop looking over her shoulder. The legal aftermath moved with surprising speed. Within 2 weeks, all the fraudulent transfers were reversed. The house deed returned to my parents' names with me as conservator. The business accounts were restored. The 40,000 Victoria had taken was harder to recover. She'd spent most of it on her appearance, her car rental, hotels. But the plea deal required her to pay it back over 5 years. Mr. Harrison handled everything with the efficiency of someone who'd been preparing for this moment. Your parents were smarter than Victoria gave them credit for, he told me. That original will was ironclad. She never stood a chance. The family dynamics shifted too. Margaret became a regular visitor, bringing casseroles and sitting with Mom during her confused days. My uncles, freed from the awkwardness of choosing sides, helped me renovate the house to be safer for my parents. Grab bars, better lighting, a medical alert system. We should have stood up for you, Uncle James said one afternoon, installing a ramp for Dad's wheelchair. When she put that label on you, we should have said something. You were scared of dividing the family. The family was already divided, we just pretended not to see it. Mitchell Family Enterprises thrived without the cloud of uncertainty. Clients who'd been nervous about the ownership dispute renewed their contracts. 3 major companies that had been waiting on the sidelines signed on. Within a month, we'd grown another 15%. I hired 2 new account managers and promoted my assistant to operations director. You're the real CEO now, she said. No one questioning it, no one threatening to take it away. I was always the real CEO. Now it's just official. The truth was, the business success felt hollow compared to the moments with my parents. Dad's clear days became fewer, but when they came, he was fully present. I'm proud of you, he'd say. Not for winning, for staying. Mom's anxiety decreased once Victoria was gone. Her doctor said the constant manipulation had been making her condition worse. Elder abuse isn't always physical, he explained. Sometimes it's psychological torture. Your sister was literally driving your mother crazy. One evening, I found Mom looking through the photo albums Victoria had left behind. She'd only taken ones from her childhood, leaving the rest. Look, Mom said, pointing to a picture of my college graduation. Victoria's not in any of these. 8 years of your achievements, and she's not in a single photo. She was traveling. No, sweetheart. She was absent. There's a difference between being away and being absent. You were away when you lived in the city, but you were never absent. She was absent even when she was here. The district attorney's office was thorough in their investigation. Detective Sarah Chen spent 3 hours interviewing me, recording everything about Victoria's manipulation tactics. Financial elder abuse is one of the fastest-growing crimes, she explained. Your case is textbook. Family member returns when parents are vulnerable, isolates them from other family, creates dependency, then strikes. The only unusual part is how well prepared your parents were. They knew their daughter. That must have been painful for them, to love someone and still need protection from them. The evidence was overwhelming. Bank surveillance showed Victoria guiding Dad's hand as he signed. Medical records confirmed he couldn't have understood complex financial documents. The timeline Mr. Harrison had created showed a clear pattern of escalating control. The plea deal is generous, Detective Chen said. 5 years probation, mandatory counseling, restitution, and a permanent restraining order. She can never contact your parents again. What if she violates it? Immediate imprisonment, 5 years, no parole. I signed the victim impact statement, agreeing to the plea deal, not out of mercy for Victoria, but exhaustion. I wanted it over. The financial investigation revealed more than just the 40,000. Victoria had opened credit cards in our parents' names, charged another 30,000. She'd tried to liquidate their retirement accounts, but needed a second signature she couldn't forge. She'd even researched reverse mortgages on the house. She was planning to strip them of everything, Detective Chen said. If Mr. Harrison hadn't intervened when he did, she would have succeeded. But she's still their daughter. They still love her. Love and accountability aren't mutually exclusive. You can love someone and still protect yourself from them. The investigation also cleared my name completely. Every dollar I'd earned, every business decision I'd made, every check I'd written for my parents' care, all legitimate, all documented. You ran that company with complete transparency, the forensic accountant said. I've rarely seen books this clean. It's like you knew someone would audit them someday. I knew Victoria would come back eventually. I wanted to be ready. You couldn't have known she'd try this. I knew she'd try something. She used to joke about her inheritance when we were kids, about how she'd spend it. She never joked about earning anything, only about what she was owed. The final report was damning for Victoria, but vindicating for me. Every accusation she'd made was proven false. Every manipulation exposed, every lie documented. Victoria's last stand came through a lawyer, not a good one, but the only one who'd take her case on contingency. He sent a demand letter claiming emotional distress, defamation, and alienation of parental affection. The number he demanded was laughable: $2 million. Mr. Harrison actually chuckled when he read it. Alienation of parental affection isn't even a real cause of action in this state. And emotional distress? She committed elder abuse. This is what we call a nuisance suit. Should I be worried about this? No. But it tells us she's desperate. Desperate people make mistakes. The mistake came 2 days later. Victoria showed up at Mitchell Family Enterprises, trying to convince my employees that she was the rightful owner. Security footage showed her in the lobby, waving the old transfer papers, demanding to be let into her office. My operations director called me immediately. She's here, making a scene. Should I call the police? Yes. She's violating the restraining order. By the time I arrived, 2 officers had Victoria in handcuffs. She saw me and started screaming. You stole everything! You manipulated them! You're not even real family! Ma'am, you need to calm down, the officer said. I want her arrested. Victoria pointed at me with her cuffed hands. She's a fraud. The officer looked at me apologetically. We've explained the restraining order. This is a clear violation. She'll be held pending a hearing. As they led her away, Victoria turned back one last time. You'll never be their real daughter. Never! I already am, I said quietly. I've always been. The violation meant the plea deal was void. The DA's office moved forward with full charges: elder abuse, fraud, identity theft, and now criminal contempt. Victoria was looking at real prison time. Her lawyer withdrew from the case the next day. No one else would take it. The evidence was too overwhelming, the violations too blatant. She'd burned every bridge, exhausted every option. A week later, I got a call from a jail number. I almost didn't answer, but curiosity won. Olivia? Victoria's voice was small, defeated. I need help. I can't help you, Victoria. You know that. I know, I wanted you to know I'm taking the new plea deal. 3 years minimum security, then probation. I'll be out of your lives forever. Okay. Take care of them, please. I always have. The line went dead. It was the last time we ever spoke. The judge at Victoria's sentencing was a small woman with silver hair and sharp eyes. Judge Patricia Thornton had a reputation for being tough on elder abuse cases, and she lived up to it. Ms. Mitchell, she addressed Victoria, who stood in an orange jumpsuit, her designer clothes a memory. You targeted the most vulnerable members of your own family. You exploited their trust, their love, and their declining health for financial gain. This court has reviewed the evidence, including security footage of you physically guiding your father's hand, to sign documents he couldn't understand. "Do you have anything to say?" Victoria's court-appointed attorney whispered urgently, but she shook him off. "I was their real daughter. I had rights." "You had responsibilities," Judge Thornton interrupted, "which you abandoned for a decade. Your sister—" "Yes, Ms. Mitchell. She is your sister legally and morally, fulfilled those responsibilities while you were, in your own words, finding yourself. You found yourself, all right. You found yourself to be someone who would steal from their own parents." The sentence was harsh but fair. 3 years in minimum security for elder abuse, 2 years concurrent for fraud, 5 years probation after release, and full restitution of $70,000. "Furthermore," the judge continued, "you are permanently barred from any contact with Robert and Helen Mitchell. Any violation will result in immediate imprisonment for the maximum sentence of 10 years. As they led Victoria away, she didn't look back. Her shoulders were slumped, her fight finally gone. The woman who'd tried to erase me from the family had instead erased herself. Outside the courthouse, Mr. Harrison waited with an umbrella. It had started to rain. "How do you feel?" he asked. "Empty," I admitted. "I thought I'd feel vindicated, but I just feel sad." "That's because you have empathy. She counted on that, you know. She thought your kindness would make you weak." "Maybe it does." "No, Olivia. Your kindness is what made your parents choose you. It's what built your business. It's what saved them from losing everything. Kindness isn't weakness when it's paired with boundaries." The media picked up the story. "Adopted daughter saves elderly parents from bio-daughter's fraud," ran in the local paper. I declined all interviews. This wasn't a story I wanted to profit from. It was a tragedy I'd survived. But the publicity had an unexpected benefit. 3 other families reached out, sharing similar stories. We formed a support group for families dealing with financial elder abuse. Sometimes the greatest revenge is turning pain into purpose. 6 months after the sentencing, life had found a new rhythm. My parents were settled in a routine that worked for their conditions. Mom had good days and bad days, but the good ones were peaceful now, free from Victoria's toxic presence. Dad's decline was steady but gentle. He knew he was safe, loved, and home. The business hit a milestone, $5 million in revenue. I promoted my operations director to partner, giving her 20% equity. "You've earned this," I told her. "You stood by me when everything was uncertain." "You mean when your sister was trying to steal everything?" "When my sister was destroying herself," I corrected. "The saddest part is, if she'd just asked for help, really asked without manipulation, I would have given it." Margaret became a daily presence, moving into the guest house to help with my parents' care. "I owe you this," she said. "For all the years I let blood matter more than behavior." The extended family slowly healed. Sunday dinners resumed, with cousins bringing their children to play in the yard where Victoria and I had once played. No one mentioned her name, but her absence was felt, like a tooth missing from a smile. I kept my promise about the visitor label. It sat in a small frame on my office desk, right next to a photo from my adoption day. Clients sometimes asked about it, and I'd tell them a shortened version. Someone once tried to make me feel like I didn't belong. I kept it as a reminder that belonging isn't something others can give or take, it's something you claim. One afternoon, Mom had a perfect clarity moment. We were sitting in the garden, watching the roses she'd planted years ago bloom despite neglect. "I need to tell you something," she said, her voice strong, "about the will, the original one." "Mom, you don't need to." "Yes, I do. We wrote it the day after you graduated college. Victoria had promised to come, bought a ticket even. But she sold it to extend her trip. You didn't know she was supposed to be there." I suspected. "You walked across that stage, looked for her anyway. I saw you searching the crowd. That's when I knew. You loved her despite everything. And she loved only herself. She's still your daughter, Mom. Biology made her my daughter. Choice made you my daughter. And if I had to choose again, knowing everything that would happen, I'd still choose you. Every single time. A year later, I stood in the same conference room where everything had unraveled. But this time, I was there for a different reason. Mr. Harrison was retiring, and he'd asked me to be there for the transition to his partner. 35 years I've been doing this, he said, looking around the room. I've seen every type of family dispute imaginable. But yours taught me something. What's that? That sometimes the best preparation for betrayal is hope paired with documentation. He smiled. Your parents hoped Victoria would never do what she did, but they documented everything in case she tried. That's wisdom. He handed me a box, the same locked box that had held the blue folder. Your parents wanted you to have this when the time was right. I think that time is now. Inside were letters, dozens of them, dated from my adoption through college. Each one from my parents to me, never sent, just saved. The first one was dated the day after my adoption. Dear Olivia, today you became ours, but the truth is, we became yours. You're 3 years old and you've already lost so much, but we promise you'll never lose us. Even if our minds fade, even if our bodies fail, we will always be your parents, and you will always be our daughter. The last one was dated a week before Victoria returned. Dear Olivia, I'm writing this on a clear day, and I want you to know. We see Victoria coming. Not literally, but we know she'll return when she hears about Dad's diagnosis. We've prepared everything with Mr. Harrison. Trust him, trust the law, trust yourself, and know that no matter what happens, no matter what we might say or do in our confusion, you are our chosen one. Our daughter by choice is stronger than our daughter by chance. I sat in that conference room, reading letter after letter, crying freely. Mr. Harrison sat quietly, a tissue box between us. They loved you from the first moment, he said finally. But more importantly, they respected you. They saw who you'd become before you became it. What about Victoria? Did they write her letters? One, just one. It's in the prison mail system now. She'll get it when she's released. They forgave her, Olivia. But forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting. It doesn't mean trusting. It just means releasing the anger. I thought about that as I drove home, the box of letters beside me. My parents were napping when I arrived, holding hands even in sleep. I kissed both their foreheads and went to my office. The visitor label still sat on my desk, but now it felt different. Not like a wound, but like a scar. Healed, faded, just part of my story. Family isn't about blood. It's about choice. And every day, I choose them, just as they chose me. If this story resonated with you, please share it with someone who needs to hear that standing up for yourself isn't selfish, it's necessary. What boundaries have you had to set with family? Drop a comment below. I read every single one, and your stories help others know they're not alone. And remember, if you enjoyed this story, subscribe and hit the bell so you don't miss my next one about justice served cold. Your support helps these important stories reach people who need them. Until then, know your worth, document everything, and remember, family is chosen, not just born.